Here is the improved script in English, ready to use. There is a test that takes less than 10 seconds, requires no equipment, no lab work, no doctor's appointment, and predicts how long you will live more accurately than your blood pressure, your cholesterol level, or your entire smoking history combined. That test is how fast you walk. And the reason that number predicts your lifespan is one of the most important things you will ever learn about your own body. Stand up for a moment if you can. Feel your weight settle into your feet. You are standing on something that took 2 million years to build. The human foot contains 26 bones, 33 joints, and over 100 tendons and ligaments arranged into a tensioned arch, the same structural principle that holds up bridges. When your foot compresses under your weight, that arch stores elastic energy. When it rebounds, it returns that energy, reducing the metabolic cost of each step by roughly 17%. No other primate on Earth has this structure. Your feet are spring-loaded platforms built for one specific purpose: walking on a flat ground for very long distances. And underneath the sole of your foot, most people never learn about this, there is a dense network of veins called the plantar venous plexus. Every time your foot strikes the ground, your body weight compresses that network and squeezes blood upward through the veins of your leg toward your heart. Each step is a pump stroke. Walking at a normal pace delivers 60 to 70 pump strokes per minute per foot. A dedicated hydraulic system built into the bottom of each foot, activated only by walking. Standing does not activate it. Sitting does not activate it. The heavy-legged feeling after a long day at a desk is partly blood pooling in vessels that have not been pumped. Now, here is the physics of what happens when you actually take a step. Your body performs an act of controlled falling. Your center of mass rises as you vault over your planted leg, functioning as an inverted pendulum. The same physics that governs a clock pendulum, but flipped upside down, with the pivot at the ground and the mass at the top. As your weight passes over the planted foot and begins to fall forward, the potential energy of the rise converts to kinetic energy with roughly 65% efficiency. Your muscles only supply the remaining 35%. A robot attempting bipedal walking at this efficiency would require years of optimization. Your body does it without conscious thought, adjusting stride length, foot placement, and weight distribution in real time to surface angle, wind, and terrain. Calculations your cerebellum performs thousands of times per minute without your awareness. Your Achilles tendon, the thick cord connecting your calf to your heel, exists at a length and thickness found in no other great ape. During each step, as your body weight loads the forefoot, the tendon stretches and stores elastic energy. During push-off, that energy rebounds, contributing propulsive force without additional muscular effort, returning roughly 35% of the energy it absorbed. Between the pendulum dynamics and the tendon rebound, the muscular cost of walking is astonishingly small. This is why you can walk for hours without the exhaustion that running produces in minutes. Your wide pelvis, your angled femur, your locked knee in extension, your short toes, your rigid arched foot. Every single feature is a walking adaptation. They do not help you sit. They do not help you stand. They help you walk and run for hours across distance. You are the most efficient walking machine the primate lineage has ever produced. Daniel Lieberman at Harvard has spent decades demonstrating that the human body is, in the most literal sense, an endurance locomotion machine. His research on persistence hunting, the practice still observed in some indigenous communities of chasing prey on foot across open ground until the animal collapses from heat exhaustion, reveals why. Most mammals cool themselves by panting, which requires them to stop running. Humans cool themselves by sweating. Your 2 million sweat glands, far more than any other primate, allow continuous heat dissipation during sustained movement. Your ancestors could walk for hours in the midday African sun while their prey had to stop and pant. The hunt was never about speed. It was always about endurance. The prey was always faster. The human was always more persistent, and the animal that could not cool itself while moving eventually stopped, overheated, and collapsed. Lieberman's central argument is that every system in your body was calibrated to a baseline of daily sustained movement that modern life has quietly removed. That removal is recent. For 99.5% of the 2 million years since Homo erectus, daily walking distances of 5 to 10 miles were completely normal. Hunter-gatherers averaged 6 to 9 miles per day, Agricultural workers through the Middle Ages walked comparable distances. Your grandparents walked more than you do. Your great-grandparents walked more than they did. The average person over 65 today walks roughly 1.5 to 2 miles per day. Many walk less. The body that was calibrated to 6 miles per day is receiving 1.5. This distinction matters more than almost anything else in the medicine of aging. And it is the one distinction that most people miss entirely. A significant portion of what people experience as aging, the stiffness in the morning, the heaviness in the legs by afternoon, the loss of balance that makes you reach for the handrail, the back pain that settles in after sitting, the swollen ankles by evening, the sleep that fragments at 2 in the morning, the cognitive fog that thickens through the winter, maps not to the calendar, but to the step counter. A 70-year-old who walks 5 miles a day functions in many measurable parameters: cardiovascular output, bone density, balance, immune markers, hippocampal volume, gait speed, like a person 10 to 15 years younger. A 60-year-old who walks a quarter mile a day presents with symptoms that are commonly attributed to aging, but are, in clinical terms, symptoms of deconditioning. The physiological decline that results from insufficient mechanical input. Deconditioning looks like aging. It feels like aging. It is diagnosed as aging. But it is not aging. It is the body responding exactly as designed to the absence of the one input it requires. The body is not falling apart from time. It is falling apart from stillness. Now here is what walking does to your bones, and it is not what you think. Your bones are piezoelectric. When mechanical force is applied, the impact of a heel striking the ground, the compression of your spine, the bending forces in your femur, the hydroxyapatite crystals in the bone matrix, generate a small electrical charge. Piezoelectricity, the same property used in quartz watches and gas lighters, is built into the mineral structure of your skeleton. And that electrical signal is not random noise. It is a regulatory signal. Osteoblasts, the cells that build new bone, respond to this charge by increasing their activity. More impact means more electrical signal, means more bone building. This is the physics underneath the principle that orthopedic surgeons have known since the 19th century. Wolff's Law. Julius Wolff observed that bone remodels itself along the lines of mechanical stress. It grows thicker where forces are greatest and thins where forces are absent. The piezoelectric mechanism explains exactly how the electrical charge generated by mechanical loading tells the osteoblast where to build. Your skeleton is not a fixed structure. It is a responsive system that continuously redesigns itself based on the forces applied to it. Walking provides those forces. The bones respond by building density precisely where the walking forces land: in the heel, in the tibia, in the femoral neck, in the lumbar spine. The locations where osteoporotic fractures most commonly occur are exactly the locations where walking forces concentrate. When you stop walking, the electrical signal stops. Bone resorption, the breakdown of bone tissue, continues at its normal rate, but bone building slows. The balance tips toward loss. Astronauts in zero gravity lose roughly 1 to 2% of bone density per month, not because space is toxic to bones, but because the gravitational loading that generates the piezoelectric signal is absent. Bedridden patients experience the same loss on the same timeline. Your bones do not need a gym. They need the specific mechanical loading pattern that walking provides. The rhythmic, moderate impact forces that your skeleton evolved to interpret as the signal to maintain itself. Walking also operates every fluid system in your body, and this is where the engineering reveals how completely the body depends on movement. Your lymphatic system, the network that carries immune cells, removes waste, and maintains fluid balance, has no heart, no dedicated pump. Lymph moves only when surrounding muscles squeeze the vessels, pushing fluid through one-way valves. The calf is sometimes called the second heart because its contractions during walking drive lymphatic and venous fluid upward against gravity. When you sit for hours, the pump stops. The immune cells responsible for patrolling your tissues and destroying pathogens pool in the lower extremities instead of circulating. The surveillance system does not shut down, but it operates at reduced capacity. The swelling in your ankles after a day of sitting is not a disease. It is a pump that is not running. Your intervertebral discs, the cartilage pads between your vertebrae, have no blood supply. They receive nutrition through imbibition. The rhythmic loading and unloading that walking provides draws fluid in and pushes waste out. Walking feeds your spinal discs. Sitting starves them. The back stiffness after prolonged sitting that eases after a few minutes of walking is the disc rehydrating. Fluid returning to a structure that has been slowly drying out while you sat still. Fascial tissue, the connective sheets wrapping every muscle and organ, requires mechanical pumping to stay hydrated and elastic. When muscles contract and release during walking, they push fluid through the fascial layers, the way kneading dough pushes moisture through the matrix. The morning stiffness that many people over 65 experience, the sense that the body needs 10 minutes before it moves freely, is partly fascial dehydration from overnight stillness. Walking pumps fluid back through it. A body that walks daily starts each morning with better hydrated fascia than a body that does not. And that difference accumulates over months into measurably different flexibility and ease of movement. Even your digestive tract depends on walking. Peristalsis, the muscular contractions that move food through your gut, is stimulated by the rhythmic motion of walking. Constipation in older adults correlates with physical inactivity more strongly than with diet. The gut was designed to process food in a body that moves. Blood, lymph, spinal nutrition, fascial hydration, digestive transit. Every fluid system was designed to operate in a walking body. In a sitting body, all of them degrade, not from disease, from the absence of the mechanical input they require. Now here is where the story shifts from the body to the brain, and where a result was published that forced neuroscience to revise what it thought it knew. For most of the 20th century, neuroscience held a firm consensus. The adult human brain could not generate new neurons. You were born with all the brain cells you would ever have, and aging meant losing them. Slowly, irreversibly, roughly 1 to 2% of hippocampal volume per year after 60. The hippocampus is the structure responsible for forming new memories, for spatial navigation, for the kind of recall that lets you remember where you parked, what you had for breakfast, and the name of the person you met last week. Its steady decline was considered as inevitable as the graying of hair. Textbooks taught it. Research grants assumed it. Clinical practice accepted it. Kirk Erickson at the University of Pittsburgh designed an experiment to challenge that assumption directly. In 2011, he took 120 sedentary older adults, average age 67, people who had not been exercising regularly, and randomly assigned half to a walking program, 40 minutes of moderate walking 3 times per week for 1 year. The other half did stretching exercises for the same duration and frequency. Before and after the year, Erickson measured hippocampal volume using structural MRI. In the stretching group, the hippocampus shrank as expected, following the trajectory that decades of neuroscience had documented, declining at the predicted rate. In the walking group, the hippocampus grew by roughly 2%. 1 year of walking 3 times a week reversed approximately 1 to 2 years of age-related hippocampal atrophy. The walkers also performed significantly better on spatial memory tests, the kind of memory that allows you to navigate a familiar neighborhood, find your car in a parking lot, remember the layout of a new building. The result was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, and it forced a revision of what neuroscience could say about the aging brain. What drives the growth is a protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. Walking increases BDNF production in the brain, and BDNF promotes the survival of existing neurons, the growth of new synaptic connections, and critically, neurogenesis, the birth of new neurons in the dentate gyrus of the hippocampus. The walkers were not just preserving brain tissue, they were growing it. New neurons, new connections, in a structure that the scientific consensus had said could not regenerate. The consensus was wrong. The walking proved it. Erickson's result required no gym, no trainer, no equipment, no medication. It required walking at a moderate pace, a pace where conversation is comfortable, where breathing is elevated but not strained, where the body is working but not suffering, for 40 minutes, 3 times per week. The dose that grew the hippocampus is a walk around the neighborhood 3 times a week at a pace you can sustain while talking to a friend. If you have noticed that your memory is not what it was, that names take longer to surface, that you walk into rooms and forget why, that the sharp recall of 10 years ago has softened, part of what you are experiencing is hippocampal volume loss. And part of that loss is reversible, not with a drug, not with a crossword puzzle, not with a supplement marketed for brain health, with walking. Now, there is another system that walking maintains that becomes critical after 65, and it is the system most directly connected to the falls that change lives. Balance is not a single ability. It is a real-time integration of three sensory systems: vision, the vestibular system in your inner ear, and proprioception, the network of sensors in your joints, tendons, and muscle spindles that detect the position and movement of your body in space. The proprioceptive sensors in your ankles and feet are particularly important for walking balance. They detect the angle of the ground surface, the shift of your center of mass, and the subtle adjustments needed to keep you upright on every step. These sensors maintain their accuracy through use. They calibrate to a body that is moving. When the body stops moving, when days are spent sitting in a chair, the proprioceptive system decalibrates. The sensors become less sensitive. The response time slows. The real-time adjustments that prevent a stumble from becoming a fall become less precise. The loss of balance that many people over 65 experience is not entirely neurological decline. A significant component is proprioceptive decalibration from disuse. Sensors that have not been challenged by varying surfaces, weight shifts, and the small corrections that every step on uneven ground demands. Walking on varied terrain, sidewalks, grass, gentle slopes, recalibrates these sensors actively. Each step is a balance challenge that the proprioceptive system solves in real time, and each solution refines the system's accuracy. A daily walk is a daily proprioceptive training session that no balance exercise in a gym fully replicates, because the gym floor is flat and predictable and the real world is not. Now, the measurement from the beginning of this story pays off. Studensky's meta-analysis covered 35,000 people over 65, followed across multiple studies for 6 to 21 years. Gait speed, measured over 4 meters of flat ground, timed to the 10th of a second, predicted survival more accurately than age, sex, chronic disease burden, hospitalization history, or body mass index. People who walked faster lived longer. The relationship was continuous. Every increment of speed correlated with lower mortality, and the relationship held across every subgroup: men and women, healthy and chronically ill, young old, and old. Here is why this works. Gait speed is not itself the cause of longevity. It is a summary measurement, a single number that reflects the integrated function of the entire body compressed into one observable act. Walking requires your heart to deliver oxygen to working muscles. It requires your lungs to exchange gases efficiently enough to sustain the demand. It requires your muscles to generate force against gravity. It requires your bones to bear the load without pain. It requires your nervous system to maintain balance on every step, coordinate the firing sequence of dozens of muscles, and process the sensory environment in real time. It requires your brain to plan the route, anticipate obstacles, and sustain the intention to move forward. When any of these systems degrades, cardiovascular, pulmonary, muscular, skeletal, neurological, cognitive, the body protects itself by slowing down. Gait speed is the body's self-report on the state of every system simultaneously. No blood test captures that. No imaging scan captures that. 4 meters of flat ground captures it. A comfortable walking speed of roughly 1 meter per second is associated with median life expectancy at most ages over 65. Speeds above 1.2 meters per second are associated with better than expected survival. Speeds below 0.6 meters per second are associated with significantly increased mortality risk. The number is not a death sentence, and it is not a guarantee. It is a reflection of how well the walking machine is functioning, and the walking machine is the entire body. If you have noticed that you walk more slowly than you used to, that crossing the street in the time the signal allows has become harder, that younger people pass you on the sidewalk, that walking to the shop takes longer than it did 5 years ago, that change is the most important vital sign no one is routinely measuring. And gait speed is not fixed. It responds to intervention. Walking more regularly, consistently, at the best pace you can sustain, improves every system that determines the speed. The measurement and the treatment are the same act. Start walking, even 10 minutes a day, even slowly, even with a cane, and the systems respond in a specific sequence. On the first walk, the venous and lymphatic pumps activate. Blood moves upward from the feet. Lymph begins circulating through tissues that have been stagnant. You may notice that your ankles are less swollen by evening. Within the first week, fascial hydration improves. The morning stiffness eases. The first minutes of the day feel less locked. The body warms up faster. Digestion normalizes as peristalsis reactivates. Within 2 to 3 weeks, the cardiovascular system adapts. Resting heart rate drops slightly as stroke volume improves. Blood pressure settles lower, and the same distance that left you breathless at the start begins to feel manageable. You walk the same route and arrive less winded. That is not willpower. That is cardiac adaptation. The heart pumping more blood per beat. The muscles extracting oxygen more efficiently. The body recalibrating to a stimulus it has not received in years. Within a month, balance improves as the proprioceptive pathways in your ankles and feet recalibrate to a body that is moving again. The handrail feels less necessary. The uneven sidewalk feels less threatening. Your nervous system is relearning the real-time adjustments it was designed to make on every step. Over months, the piezoelectric signal begins rebuilding bone density at the sites where walking forces concentrate. And the hippocampal neurogenesis that Erickson measured, the new neurons, the BDNF-driven growth in the part of your brain that forms memories, that takes weeks to months of consistent walking to begin. But it begins. The body does not require you to believe in the mechanism. It requires steps. No other exercise does all of this simultaneously. Running generates higher impact forces and stronger cardiovascular stimulus, but carries injury risk that increases with age. The knees, the hips, and the ankles absorb forces 3 to 4 times body weight with each running stride, compared to roughly 1 to 1.5 times during walking. For most people over 65, running is not sustainable. Swimming is excellent cardiovascular exercise, but removes the gravitational loading that generates the piezoelectric signal in bones. Swimmers have lower bone density than walkers, despite superior cardiovascular fitness. Cycling eliminates the heel strike, the plantar venous pump, the spinal loading cycle, and the balance challenge. Each of these is valuable exercise. None provides the specific mechanical inputs that the human body was designed to receive through bipedal gait. Walking is the baseline. It is the evolutionary minimum, the movement the body expects to receive every day, the input every system was calibrated to. The stimulus that maintains bones, circulates lymph, feeds discs, hydrates fascia, moves the gut, grows the hippocampus, and integrates every physiological system into the single measurable output that Studensky showed predicts how long you will live. For a body that has been sitting for most of its recent years, walking is the single most effective intervention available. Because it restores simultaneously every system that stillness degrades, and it requires nothing but the decision to begin. 2,400 years ago, Hippocrates wrote 5 words that contain more physics than he could have known. Walking is man's best medicine. Every mechanism described here, the piezoelectric bones, the lymphatic pump, the spinal nutrition, the hippocampal growth, the gait speed that predicts how long you will live, is the physics underneath those 5 words. The prescription has not changed in 2.5 millennia. The body it was written for has not changed either. It is still a walking machine. It is still waiting to be used.